Welcome to Trigonometry Introduction Advanced version. I'm looking at the Wikipedia page for trigonometry, and it tells me that trigonometry is a branch of mathematics that studies relationships involving lengths and angles of triangles. What it doesn't mention is that they are right-angled triangles. That is what's used when using trigonometry. Okay, let's see how trigonometry could be used in real life. Let's pretend that we're standing some distance from a tower, and we know this distance, and we're able to measure the angle of elevation to our line of sight to the top of the tower by, say, using an inclinometer. Now, if we know that angle and we know this length, we can actually calculate the height of this tower without having to measure it by climbing the tower, because we could use trigonometry given that this is a right-angled triangle. Okay, now trigonometry is also used in many trades like plumbing, construction, carpentry, and of course it's used all the time in engineering. So let's have a look at trigonometry. Let's draw a right-angled triangle. Excuse my terrible drawing. So that's a right-angled triangle. Now if we had an angle in here called, let's call it angle theta, we could label the sides. Hopefully you remember this is the opposite side because it's opposite the angle. This is the hypotenuse because it's the long side, and this is the adjacent because it's next to the angle and not the hypotenuse. Now hopefully you remember that we have three formulas describing three ratios using the side length of the triangle. One such formula is sine of theta equals the ratio of O over H. So sine of the angle theta equals opposite over hypotenuse. Cos of the angle theta, sorry about the bad writing, equals adjacent over hypotenuse. Again, hopefully I've seen this before. And tan of the angle theta is equal to the opposite side over the adjacent. That is the ratio that tan tells us about. Okay, so let's look at a triangle with some actual numbers in it and think about how we're going to go about figuring out one of the side lengths. So let's say we wanted to know the height of something, or just the length of this side here, but often that would be a height, wouldn't it? Could be a tree or something. So that's what we want to find out. Let's call it x, and we know that this length here is 20 meters. And we also know that this angle in here is 30 degrees. Now, we need to go through a few steps to figure out how we're going to find out x using trigonometry. One of the steps is to figure out which formula out of these three we're going to choose. So one thing we do is we check which sides we know something about. We know something about this side. This side is the opposite side, isn't it? Label that O. We know something about this side. This side is the hypotenuse. We don't know anything about this side, which is the adjacent. So we know something about O and we know something about H. So I think we should choose sine of theta. So let's choose sine theta equals O over H. And now let's substitute the actual values that we have, the numbers, into that formula, which is just a general formula. We will actually have some specific numbers. So instead of sine of theta, we can write sine of the angle, which is 30 degrees. So we write sine of 30 equals O, and what is O? O is x in this particular triangle. X is our opposite side, divided by, divided by h, and h is 20. So now we have an expression for x which involves numbers, and by the way, sine of 30 can be calculated using a calculator. That's a number. So we can actually find this number and find x, but we'll look at how to do that in a later video. This is just an introductory video just to remind you how to go about solving problems using trigonometry in right-angled triangles. Thank you for listening. Hopefully you enjoyed that, and I'll talk to you soon.